But the very first article I wanted to talk about today, or concept, new construction has become a really dominant portion of our real estate market because of the lack of inventory. There aren't enough homes out there to support the buyer demand. And obviously we've talked about all the reasons for that in past shows, but new construction seems to be filling the gap as best they can to keep up with demand, and more common buyers are opting to move to new construction. And I think here, it doesn't always mean that somebody's going to live out in the suburbs, but it's more likely. We don't have as much new construction inventory in South Tampa, Carrollwood, and some of the core central Tampa areas. A lot more new construction in Rico View, Brandon, Riverview, and Valrico, Fishhawk Ranch, and then of course New Tampa, Wesley Chapel, and some of the outlying areas. 30 minutes to an hour commute outside of downtown Tampa. So it's become such a prevalent part of our market that we talk about it a lot. We always want to make sure that we educate people listening to the show and potential home buyers about the viability of new construction for them. So there's some things you might not know about new construction that we're going to talk about today, a few concepts. The very first thing is a lot of new construction homes aren't on the MLS. So if you're working with an agent, it's really important that the agent registers you at different builders, because builders will put some of their inventory on there, but they're not putting every single home that they have on there. They'll put a few of different floor plans, and then obviously want you to come in and see what other lots or locations might be available. So while you can rely on the MLS to show you the neighborhoods and some of the offerings, not every single home is going to be on MLS. And some builders are going to a trend of, because the market's so competitive, to where they're not putting certain communities on MLS even. In years past there were builders that didn't want to cooperate with realtors, and so they would simply have their inventory themselves and advertise it themselves. So you're not always going to find everything on the MLS. New homes are often sold before they're built. They'll go under contract to be to be built. Even spec homes, we're finding. Buyers, showing up to see homes that are halfway under construction and saying, hey, I want to buy this home so I can finish it, or so I can, pick some of the finishes myself. So a lot of times, while builders do have some spec ready to go, move in inventory, a lot of homes sell before they're ever finished. The first buyers in a new construction community usually get the best discounts and the best deals. Builders, just like anyone else, work off of heavy financing, and they want to sell a certain amount of homes in a community and able to secure more funds to continue building. So they want to move that initial percentage of inventory pretty quickly, where they're willing to throw in things, cover closing costs, offer incentives. They may not necessarily want to discount the price, but they may give you more for the money. They may give you more upgrades, more options, things like that, because the price can set the bar for appraisal. So that they want to do what they can to avoid doing that, because I think we all know how challenging appraisals can be.
Good times.
Yeah, I'm sure we could have a whole show about that. Builders don't have a personal attachment to the home. That's Darcy can probably speak to this as well. Buyers right now, because of how competitive it is, they're writing letters and doing videos. They're doing what they can to win the bidding war. And then as a home seller, in some instances, might really like a buyer and say, you know what, I'm going to sell to them because I really like them. You've probably gotten the offer letters. You've probably helped people write them. You've probably seen that as a listing agent as well as helping as a buyer agent as well, right?
Absolutely, and people like doing that, and the sellers like seeing it, and sometimes that's what actually makes the offer go through, is the video or the letter.
We see it happen all the time where the home seller is emotional. They've got an attachment to the home. So they find something in that letter or video where they really like the people, even if the numbers aren't there. Probably not going to work with a builder. They're publicly traded companies. They care about their dividends, their returns. They're returning it, So if you're in a bidding war on a to-be-built house, the touchy-feely type stuff, probably not going to get it done for you.
Buy the one next door.
What's that?
Buy the one next door.
Yeah,
if you're a
exactly.
war.
Yeah. So they're not going to have a personal attachment to the home, which also means you're probably not going to offend them either, which is kind of nice. So a builder, it's a business decision. So they're not going to get offended at a lowball offer because it's not their house. They're going to tell you no, or they're going to counter you, but they're not going to get all up in arms and emotional about it. They're going to simply respond with math and say, here's what we can do, or here's what we can't do. And then, I talked about this, when it comes to buyers getting the discounts. In a market where the appraisals are so sensitive, because prices are going up, because inventory is low, because, you know, I mean, we're just seeing so much appreciation. Builders don't want to give discounts off the price. They want to hold the line on price but give you more value. In other words, they would much rather keep the price at $300 and throw in a $10,000 upgrade than they would knock 10 grand off the price. And that isn't, you know, people would look at that and say, well, isn't that the same? It's $10,000 to them either way you look at it. Yes and no, but what ends up happening if they discount the price, then the next appraisal shows up and that holds the line on price, because, you know, in reality, they also know that those upgrades aren't dollar for dollar, you know, improvements on appraisals. So they would much rather, you know, do the upgrade. Same thing with closing costs. They would much rather pay, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6% closing cost concessions than knock 20 grand off the price, because they're holding that price for the appraisal. So hopefully those were some good tips for you. I know Richard, you know, on the homeowner's insurance front, new construction generally is a nice savings for people.
Absolutely. I just gave a presentation to your buyer's agents teams a few weeks ago, and that's one of the things that we talked about. When people are out shopping for a home and they're thinking, what can I afford? The only thing that the majority of them are looking at is price and the mortgage. Mm-hmm. They're not taking into consideration the affordability of owning that house as we move forward. And in the last couple of days, we have dealt with quite a few houses. They seem to be popping up lately with old wiring systems, cloth wiring systems, knob and tube wiring systems. And number one, this is going to greatly increase your insurance costs when you have an old system like this. I mean, we go from having 30 different companies that are fighting against each other to get your business to now maybe 1 or 2. And those 1 or 2 know that they don't have to offer a good price because there's issues with the house. Then you got to consider the upgrades and things like that are going to be that you're going to have to be paying for very shortly after you move in. On the new construction houses, we've seen prices as low as in the 300s per year. So
yeah,
you know, $30 a month for homeowners insurance.
It's incredibly cheap.
As opposed to a house with an old electrical system.
Or it could be a few thousand.
It could be a few $1,000s, maybe $300 a month, as opposed to $30 a month. So yeah, huge difference between new construction and an older house. So definitely take that into consideration in your shopping for a new house.
Yeah, I think another thing, obviously, the efficiency of the home. So a lot of the utility costs are generally going to be lower.
Absolutely.
You're also going to see lower property taxes, especially for that first year of ownership, until the property's reassessed. A lot of people are just taxed on land.
Right.
So, you know, you definitely a lot of financial savings, efficiency savings, but one place where a lot of people make a mistake is they go directly to a builder without a real estate agent. You know, I can tell you time and again that the builder has their best interest in mind. They're investors. You know, most of them are publicly traded companies. They care about getting a return. They want to get the most money they can for the house. Whereas, you know, coming in with an agent that's experienced at negotiating, their goal is obviously to get you the best deal that they can get you. So coming in with an agent is a really important thing. A lot of people say, well, I'm going to go to the builder directly without an agent because they'll give me a better deal. And they really will not. You know, that all that they're basically doing is probably paying their salesperson a little bit more. But, and secondarily, they're still holding that line on price. They're not going to discount your price. They're just not going to, because one, they don't want to disrupt the relationship with the realtor community where, you know, 70, 80, 90% of their sales come from realtors. So they're not going to tick off realtors by doing inside deals that are better, you know, for the customer. But secondarily, they've got to hold that line on price. So having an agent, you know, go in to help you negotiate that purchase is something really crucial.
Would you say the best benefit for the agent is maybe going to be more so like closing cost concessions or upgrades as opposed to getting a lower price on the house?
It's getting you more for your money,
right.
You know, and not necessarily in price, but terms. You know, getting more for your money, a smoother process, a more knowledgeable person to kind of be able to look at things and explain them to you and understand it from a different perspective.
It's good to have your buyer's agent as well, because the contracts for new construction are totally
way
different than the
way
as-is
different
contract.
Yeah, I mean, there are things in those contracts that are non-negotiable, where the builder won't budge, and there's some that are, you know, and they set it up. Those contracts are written by very expensive, powerful attorneys in the favor of these large, you know, enormous national builder companies in their favor, you know, intentionally. So
absolutely.
You can Google just about every builder and see horror stories from people that don't get what they want, but they don't have a legal arm to stand on because it's what's in the contract, but maybe they didn't read it or understand it, and that would have been helpful to have their own person there to help them interpret and understand it a little bit.
You also don't want to be afraid to get a home inspection on a brand
Oh, yeah.
brand new house, because
Yeah.
we get a lot of claims on brand new houses with building issues.
Oh yeah, it's still a man-made product. You know, we had Randy New for Buyer Protection Group come into our office last week, and he mentioned that specifically. He's like, I see more stuff on new construction sometimes than I do on resale, because there's stuff that gets missed. The builders get in a hurry, they're throwing up a lot of houses at once.
They have a lot of
You know,
subcontractors.
They have a lot of
in and out.
subs, and maybe they get a bad sub on a house that misses some things. So again, that inspection process and negotiating through that is also helpful to have an agent on your side, kind of advocating for you.
Absolutely.
You know, to get that done. So that's pretty much the first segment of the show. We want to cover, you know, new construction. It's such a prevalent thing in our market right now. So hopefully the things we talked about today about what a home buyer needs to know about new construction homes is helpful. If you're visiting from out of town, let's say you're here for spring break or you're here for spring training, a lot of stuff we talked about is probably relative to our market. You know, we do get a certain percentage of listeners this time of year that are listening to our show that aren't you know, focused on real estate in Tampa Bay, but in another part of the country. And so we're talking about real estate in Tampa Bay. It might not apply to wherever else you live up north, but that's what the advice we have for buyers looking at new construction in Tampa Bay. So we'll be back on the second segment of the show. We're going to talk about Tampa real estate stats that just came out, what that means to you about the real estate market, and so much more after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Show.